Hello there. My YouTube channel is Graceful Gungan, and I am just about as annoying, clumsy, and stupid as Jar Jar Binks. I think that's why I like him so much as a character. And I am here today, or tonight, depending on when and where you watch this, to talk to you about how I would fix Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This is going to be part one in a mini part video series. I say many parts because I don't know how many it will be yet. But I just want to get something out of the way before I start. When I say I'm fixing the movie, I don't mean to necessarily say I'm making it better. Obviously, I'm a bit biased in what would be good or bad, considering I'm the one doing the rewrite here. But I think this would at least fix some continuity issues that Rise of Skywalker creates. Chief among them being Palpatine. Like, that first thing out of the bat, that is one thing that is definitely being changed. Palpatine is not in my version of the movie. Anakin's story arc is preserved 100%. Well, almost 100%. We'll get to that. That'll be part of this video I am doing on Rise of Skywalker. Spoiler alert, Anakin's gonna have a role in it. Ooh. But yeah, no Palpatine. No Palpatine. I think right off the bat that makes this movie better. But anyway, jumping right into it. The I decided when doing this that I wanted to do a rewrite of Rise of Skywalker specifically because I thought it would be kind of an interesting idea to try and see if I could make this movie better. I know people are going to disagree with no matter what I do, people are going to disagree on whether or not it was good or not, but I wanted to sort of challenge myself because I think The Last Jedi is terrible. I don't know a single person, at least like per at least like person like real life off YouTube, off the internet who likes the movie. I know there are some people I've seen some people on the internet who like the movie. But I haven't met anyone in person who has, which is not me saying anything. That's just I met very few people who actually liked it. And but still, I thought it would be interesting. Like, if I got hired to write Rise of Skywalker and I had to write a sequel to The Last Jedi, I can't just get rid of it. I wanted to see, like, what can I write a movie that's a good sequel to it and sort of irons out some of the bigger problems in Last Jedi, like Luke, for one. That's something I wanted to try and fix in my rewrite of Rise of Skywalker. See if I could sort of reframe things in Last Jedi to fix Luke. And so that's sort of how that's why I chose specifically to do a video on rewriting Rise of Skywalker, because I thought it would be interesting and I thought it would be fun and I thought it would be, dare I say, challenging. So I'm gonna start right off the bat. I have a little outline next to me. Starting with the opening crawl, I actually sort of kept the idea from episode 9 that the whole movie sort of starts out from a broadcast being sent out. In Rise of Skywalker, it was Palpatine sent out a broadcast to the entire universe telling everyone he's back, which isn't that good of an idea because you're just painting a target on your back. But I sort of used that idea to an extent because I actually did think it could be if done the right way. I thought it could be like a good way to get a story started off. So I don't have like an opening crawl written next to me. I just sort of have an outline of what it would say. And it would basically, the opening crawl would establish that Rey and Kylo have both received a message through the Force from some mysterious entity, a mysterious Force user, and they can tell based on like sort of, I'm just going to say Force stuff. They can sort of tell, they can sense that whoever's contacting them is more aligned with the dark side. So Kylo decides to follow the voice. The voice invites both of them to the planet Naboo, which Star Wars fans will remember was Padme Amidala's homeworld. It was also the homeworld of Chancellor Palpatine, so I guess there is that connection. Palpatine's not in this movie, though, I promise. But they get invited to Naboo to meet with this person. And Kylo goes because he can sense that this person is aligned with the dark side and he wants to try and recruit him to the First Order. And Rey doesn't go. She decides to continue her training with Leia. That's another thing from The Rise of Skywalker I'm keeping in this movie. That's the other thing. Leia plays a somewhat significant role in my rewrite. I wrote this with the assumption that like this is a perfect universe where Carrie Fisher didn't die right after The Last Jedi finished filming. So I sort of wrote this assuming this is taking place in an alternate universe where she's still alive to play Leia, or like worst case scenario, you just have to cast a new actress to play her, which suck, but that's just I I felt like I needed Leia in sort of a significant role for this movie, and it's gonna come into play later why she's training Rey and not like a Force Ghost Luke or something that's actually going to play a role in my rewrite. But she is training with Leia. Leia's teaching her how to become a better Jedi to face off with Kylo in the First Order. And so the last thing established in this opening crawl is that Finn and Poe are actually leading a rescue mission to get a valuable asset from the First Order. They're trying to rescue someone from the First Order, and that's going to be the first like scene of this movie. Every Star Wars movies tend to open up with battle scenes, or at least I think the most memorable ones do. I always think of A New Hope starting out with Darth Vader's Star Destroyer attacking the Tantive 4, or Revenge of the Sith starting with that awesome like tracking shot of Obi-Wan and Anakin flying through that giant space battle to save Chancellor Palpatine. That's always what I sort of remember. In every Star Wars movie, whether it's a battle or not, starts out in space with like ships flying around. So that's going to be how I start out this movie. It starts out with like opening crawl goes up, and then you pull back and you just come right in on a firefight. There are a bunch of resistance ships attacking a Star Destroyer, or is it a First Order Star Destroyer, and Poe is leading the ships in an aerial attack because he's the pilot guy, and Finn is infiltrating the Star Destroyer with some resistance troopers because Finn's former stormtrooper. He knows the layouts of Star Destroyers. So you've got those two fronts. I'm not sure how long this scene would last. I want to say it would last maybe. I'm actually not sure. I was going to say 15 minutes, but that seems a bit long, so I'm going to shorten that. I'm going to say 5 to 10 minutes. You get you get like switching back and forth between Finn and the Star Destroyer and Poe, like attacking stuff, and they eventually they do succeed, and they end up leaving the Star Destroyer, and the person they were trying to get out of there is revealed to be Hux as they're leaving, and that's gonna come into play in a minute. But that's who they're trying to rescue, and they succeed in rescuing. They succeed in rescuing Hux, but in the process, Finn is forced to stay behind on the Star Destroyer. So they basically had to trade Finn for Hux without meaning to. So Finn is now captured, but they have Hux, which is what they were after. But got to take some losses sometimes. Then we shift from that scene. They've gotten Hux. We shift to Naboo, and a bunch of First Order Star Destroyers, like I'd say probably, I'm not sure, like a fleet essentially comes out of hyperspace above Naboo. And this is basically, this is most, if not all, of the First Order's ships basically come out over Naboo. And the reason for that would be explained in exposition, that Naboo has been very resistant. They've been rebelling more than other planets against the First Order. So the First Order came with a lot of firepower to make sure that no one tried to stop them from going to the planet when they arrived there. And that's why it was so easy for the Resistance to get Hux to attack his Star Destroyer, because there wasn't really anyone available to come and reinforce Hux's troops when they were attacked, because they're all with Kylo. So Kylo is basically following sort of the pull of the dark side. They go to the planet, and he sort of senses that this person he's looking for is in the capital city of Theed, which is the city that Queen Amidala ruled from. So that city in the Phantom Menace that they like invade to get Amidala out, then attack again at the end of the movie. That's the city Kylo goes to, and he enters the city. And but once he gets into the city, he just loses all connection to this person he's trying to follow. Like it just sort of like zip, it's gone, like just disappears. And so he, like Kylo always does, he gets really pissed off, and so he starts ordering his troops, like telling them, "Listen, I want you to raze this city to the ground. I want you to destroy everything until we find this person that we're looking for." He basically starts losing his mind like he always does, and then he hears the voice in his head again, and the voice basically tells him, it's sort of like imagine the way Snoke or Palpatine would talk to someone, like it's sort of like laughing like my I am so impressed by your anger. Not exactly the Palpatine voice, but just for some reason that's the voice that comes into my head when I think of someone in your head. I think that's because of that opening scene in Rise of Skywalker where he's talking to Kylo when Kylo comes onto the Sith planet. But so he's basically hearing the voice in his head saying, like, "Good. I'm very impressed by all of your anger and rage. You would make a fine Sith one day." Says something like that. That actually would be a line I want in there. Like, I haven't written out the entire thing, but I definitely would want a line along the lines of, "You would make a fine Sith one day with more training," because I want to establish that this person, he's not like Snoke. He's not just some random dark side user. Like, this guy is either a Sith or he is very familiar with the Sith. He's not just a dark side force user like Snoke was. And so he says, like, "You would make a fine Sith, especially given your predisposition to killing your masters." That wouldn't be the exact line either. That's just what I thought of right off the top of my head. But he would specifically bring up the fact that Kylo killed his old master, Snoke, and that would leave Kylo like sort of visibly like, "Oh crap, this guy knows about Snoke. He knows about like what I did. How does he know any of this?" And he does the Kylo dark side thing where he tries to like puff out his chest and be like, and say, well, if you don't follow me, and if you don't join the First Order, then I will destroy you, just like I did Snoke. And he tries to posture, he tries to act all big and tough, and the voice just starts laughing at him in his head. And then Kylo, as the voice starts laughing, Kylo begins sort of like convulsing, like tweaking out in the middle of the city, just in front of everyone. Sort of like imagine the way Poe or Rey would act whenever Kylo or Snoke would like do the Force mind thing on them, where they'd reach into their mind. Kylo starts freaking out like that. He's basically it should look familiar to fans of the series because they'll like look at it and know, oh, something's happening to his mind. Whoever he's talking to is doing the same mind thing to him that he tried to do to Poe and Rey. So he basically just starts freaking out there, and because his mind is getting invaded, and the voice says to him, like, "I said you would make a good Sith one day. Unfortunately for you, I have yet to meet a single Sith who could ever pose a threat to me," says something along those lines. So basically, it's very heavily implied in this scene that this person invited Kylo there specifically to control him, to take over him, and the scene ends with Kylo suddenly stops convulsing and his face just goes sort of blank, sort of like that cliche, like, this guy's been brainwashed now thing. And then that scene cuts again. That's basically how it ends. Kylo has been taken over by this person, because I don't like the idea. I completely understand why J.J. Abrams brought Palpatine back in Rise of Skywalker. It's because Kylo doesn't really work as a main antagonist. He was set up as the main villain at the end of Last Jedi, but it just doesn't work. He's not really that threatening because he's constantly crying and he's constantly freaking out about stuff. He's like an emo teenager. Like you can just picture him listening to emo stuff like My Chemical Romance and drawing pentagrams in his bedroom and like searching up like upside down cross earrings on Amazon to buy. Like he doesn't really come off as threatening. He comes off as someone who really wants people to be threatened by him, but he's not that threatening at all. And plus, he hasn't fared well against Rey in the past. Rey defeated him on Starkiller Base in Force Awakens. Then in Last Jedi, they had that little Force fight thing over Luke's lightsaber, and it caused an explosion. And by the time Kylo woke up from being knocked unconscious, Rey was long gone. So obviously she did more damage to him than he did to her. So he's already been bested by Rey twice in this series. And it's like, imagine going into Return of the Jedi, Luke had defeated Darth Vader in A New Hope and in Empire Strikes Back. In A New Hope, when Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan, Luke just runs up, grabs Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and starts beating up Darth Vader in front of all the stormtroopers. Then in Empire Strikes Back, Luke cuts off Darth Vader's hand. Like, imagine that. Like, Darth Vader wouldn't be that threatening. Yeah, he's got the deep voice, and yeah, he's tall, but it's like, this whiny farm boy beat him twice. Now, why am I threatened by him? And that's basically what Kylo's going through right now. Like, he's been defeated twice by the main character, so there's no tension in them fighting. Obviously, The Rise of Skywalker tried to create some. When they fought on the wreckage of the Death Star, Kylo started beating Rey until he got distracted by Leia dying. So they tried to make it work in Rise of Skywalker, but it really just doesn't. Rey's beaten him twice, so Kylo can't be the main villain. I understand why they brought Palpatine back for that reason. I don't understand why you chose Palpatine, of all people. You could have brought back someone else. Well, I guess you could have made up a villain. You could have made up a second villain. I guess there's not really that many people to bring back, except for Darth Plagueis, which I take that. I'd take Darth Plagueis over Palpatine any day. Definitely would take Darth Plagueis. That is a little clue to what is coming up in future videos. But the scene before, sorry, I was going to say the scene cuts. I was going to go to the next scene, but just to reiterate, understand why Palpatine's in Rise of Skywalker, because you need a more threatening villain than Kylo. Should not be Palpatine, though, and that's what I'm doing with this scene. Kylo's being mind-controlled, basically, by this new guy who's going to be the main villain of this movie. Because Kylo can't be the main villain. I'm just repeating myself now. Moving on. The scene cuts to Rey training with Leia. This would eventually be very similar to Rey's training in the actual Rise of Skywalker movie. Just sort of basic stuff, lightsaber, force, all of that. But the difference is, like, she's very obviously, like, pissed off while training. Like, she's angry. You can tell she's angry. She's lashing out. And Leia starts, like, trying to calm her down. Like, she's saying, like, Rey, take a break for a minute. You need to calm down. You're starting to lose control. But Rey keeps going. And she eventually lashes out with the force because her emotions get so, like, just get so out of control that she lashes out, destroys a bunch of stuff in the training room or arena, wherever they're training. I picture them training more in, like, maybe a room than out just in the open jungle, like in the Rise of Skywalker. But she destroys all the stuff around her. Leia has to use the Force to protect herself from the damage that Rey's causing. And then after Rey lashes out, she finally calms down a bit, and you can tell she regrets it. And Leia goes up to her and she says, like, Rey, you need to calm down. I understand you're going through a lot, but you're starting to go down a path that, like, not many people come back from. She's starting to go down the path to the dark side. And I haven't mapped this scene out specifically, but I do know what I'd want to happen in this scene. And this scene would be the first, like, Last Jedi retcon. This would be the first scene where we really go back, like, look at The Last Jedi and say, I am changing this. I'm changing this. I'm adjusting this to make it work. This is the first scene that does that. And this scene basically reveals in the conversation between Rey and Leia that Luke and Kylo both lied to Rey about why Luke was on was on Ahch-To, why he had exiled himself in Last Jedi. And it's basically recapped through this would just be an exposition scene. It would be kind of awkward to have so much dialogue about just correcting what happened in the previous movie, but I really don't see another way. I really think this is something that needs to be fixed about The Last Jedi. So I think this is just probably one of the better places to put it in Rise of Skywalker, is explaining why Rey is so upset. And so you basically learn through their conversation with each other that the real story about why Luke was on Ahch-To was because Snoke corrupted Kylo. That's still the thing. But Luke either didn't really sense it, or he didn't entirely take it, or he didn't take it as seriously as he should have, which isn't to say he was being neglectful. He wasn't neglecting it, but I sort of envision it as like Luke brought Vader back from the dark side. So when he started feeling Kylo start like lean towards the dark side a bit, I'm going to say he didn't sense Snoke specifically, but he did sense that Kylo was starting to lean towards the dark side. He thought to himself, like, I can handle this. I can talk to Ben. I can sort this out with him. Maybe I can bring in his parents. We can talk about this. We can work this out. He's basically like, Ben's a kid, and he's just sort of confused about what he wants to do. We can talk about this. This is sort of Luke thinking to himself, I redeemed Darth Vader. That was a way bigger task than this is. This has just been sort of not knowing what he wants to do. He's sort of still figuring out what's right and wrong. Like, I can deal with this. And obviously he can't. Snoke ends up corrupting Ben, and he gets Ben to attack Luke's Jedi Temple with the Knights of Ren, which I'm going to say are elite troops in the First Order. So the Knights of Ren and Ben attack Luke's temple on a night when Luke is not like at the temple. He's away. I'd actually have to think of an explanation for, like, maybe he's on a mission, or maybe it could be he's visiting Han and Leia to talk to them about what's going on with Ben. But so he attacks the temple on the night that Luke's not there, and he and his Knights of Ren kidnap most of Luke's students. Maybe they have to kill a few who are resisting, but they kidnap most of Luke's students, and they kidnap most of his students, including Luke's son, who was also training at the temple. So this reveals that Luke actually has a son, and it's revealed in this dialogue between them that the Knights of Ren and Kylo kidnap these people, use the Force on their minds to basically like turn their brains into soup, take away all their memories of what happened, and brainwash them into becoming members of the First Order. And Snoke specifically, after that, contacted Luke and like forced him to exile himself. He basically said, you have to get out of here, stay out of our hair, do not do anything to oppose us or to try and stop us, or we will kill your son and we will kill your students. They're basically using Luke's students and his son as hostages and bargaining chips to keep him from doing anything. So Luke goes to Ahch-To to exile himself to keep his son and his students safe. And Snoke's happy to leave him there, but Kylo wants to track Luke down and kill him himself to prove, like, now I'm really part of the dark side. I'm doing the Sith thing of killing your former master, or something like that, which is why he's looking for Luke in Force Awakens, because he basically sees this as a rite of passage to kill Luke. And Luke went along with Kylo's lie, sort of. Kylo claimed that Luke tried to kill him in his sleep. Luke claimed that he thought about killing Kylo in his sleep, but didn't. But then Kylo freaked out because he had like ignited a lightsaber over him while he was asleep. and Kylo had freaked out about it. Those were all basically lies that Luke was going along with because he wanted to keep his son and his students safe, and that's why Rey is so pissed off now. She's found this out, and she's like, I thought Ben was redeemable. I thought there might be a good guy in there, but no, he lied to me about this. He's using people's family members to blackmail them. He's doing all this horrible stuff. I want to make him pay for all of this. He needs to be brought to justice, which is why she's starting to get angrier and angrier. And it's going to be established in the scene that she's also getting more and more frustrated. And Leia's actually getting frustrated too that Luke has not been appearing to help train her now as a Force ghost. They don't understand why. Excuse me. They don't understand why, but they're getting more and more frustrated. That's another thing that I'm going to bring back up in later videos, is why Luke hasn't been showing up as a Force ghost to help train her. That's going to be a plot point. But they're both Leia's getting frustrated and Leia's getting frustrated, and Rey is just getting more and more pissed off about like the fact that she was lied to, and about the fact that Luke's just not here for her, and Luke's not helping, and she feels like he's still abandoning her like he did on Octu. She feels like he's still just trying to push her away, which is why she keeps getting angrier and angrier and going more and more towards the dark side, because she just feels like everyone and everything's against her right now. Let's see. Sorry for this dead air. I forgot I was on a roll there for a minute and forgot where I was in the script. But essentially, this exposition scene covers all of that, sort of establishes a new reason for why Luke was in exile, and Leia just keeps telling Rey, like, I understand. I'm frustrated too. I know that things aren't as good as they should be right now. I know that it's frustrating that Luke is not here, but you need to keep yourself in control, because as soon as you start losing control of your emotions, you have made yourself vulnerable to the dark side, and you risk going down the same exact path that Ben is going down right now. And then they're interrupted by a resistance member. I have Rose written down on here, but it doesn't have to be Rose. It can be anyone. It can be Nyenub. It can be Chewbacca. It can be... No, actually, they'd be on the rescue mission with Poe and Finn. It can be someone. I don't really care who. I wrote Rose down on here because Rose is a character we know, but it could be someone else. So I don't really care about that. But I'm going to say Rose. They're interrupted by Rose, who tells them that the rescue party, Finn and Poe's rescue party, has returned, and that they've returned successful with Hux. And so they go out to meet the team. They've got Hux strapped down to like a hospital bed looking thing, and he's doing the Hux thing from Force Awakens: The Last Jedi. He's freaking out, like thrashing around, trying to get free. And Poe basically tells them that Hux hasn't been cooperating with them. They've tried asking him questions. He has not answered. He refuses to answer to any other name besides Hux. Like, he believes that's who he is. And so Leia orders them to take Hux to a medical room where she can operate on him herself. She wants to try using the Force, like to undo the Force mind stuff that was done to him. She's hoping she can basically rebuild his brain into what it was before he was brainwashed using the Force, basically the opposite version of what Kylo does. And so as Hux is being taken away, she basically looks at Hux and tells him, I promise I'm going to bring you back. You're not going to be stuck like this forever, and I promise I'm going to save you. And as he's being led away, she's basically promising him to get him back, and she calls him Owen in this scene, which would be his real name. And basically this scene would reveal that Hux is the son that they mentioned previously. Hux is Luke's son, Owen Skywalker, which maybe that's kind of cheesy. I don't know. I just kind of felt like I wanted Luke to have a kid in this sequel trilogy, just sort of because like I've always envisioned Star Wars as being a generational story. George Lucas said that himself too. These movies are about the father, Anakin, the children, Luke and Leia, and the grandchildren. Fill in the blank with whoever George Lucas was going to make Anakin's grandchildren. I don't know what he would have done with that, but that's how I always wanted it to be. So with the grandchildren, you've got Kylo, and you got Ben Solo, and you got Owen Skywalker, and one other one, which is going to come up in a future video. That's a tease for you right there. But that's basically the main reason I decided to make Hux Luke's son. Besides the fact that it explains why Luke was on Ahch-To now for a better reason than the Last Jedi. I think I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I think Luke exiling himself to save a family member makes much more sense than Luke exiling himself because he tried to kill a family member in his sleep, you know? So I decided Luke needs to have a kid. That kid needs to be brainwashed, part of the First Order, as part of like a blackmail thing to keep him from interfering. Who can that kid be? Well, Hux is the only named character in the First Order who's left. Phasma died in Last Jedi, and Kylo's already spoken for, and I actually do not think there's anyone else in the First Order who has a name. At least in Force Awakens, Last Jedi. I may be misremembering, but Hux was the first one that came to mind because he's very important, and he's the one who's got a name. And so this scene ends with Rey wants to go follow Leia. She wants to try and help Leia, like, get Owen's brain back to fix Hux and turn him back into Owen Skywalker. But before she can, she's stopped by Poe, who tells her, like, I need to let you know, we lost Finn in the mission to get Hux back. He's been captured, and we're going to need to do something to save him soon. And that's as far as I've gotten so far, because I knew I wanted to do a multi-part series for this, because I know this video is already super long, so I was like, I can't do one video for this entire thing. But that's part one of this. That basically covers what I think would probably maybe be the first, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes of the movie. Maybe shorter, I'm not sure. I haven't really tried to gauge how long each of these scenes would be, but that's basically the setup right there. Hux has been saved from the First Order. Maybe if his brain gets back, he'll be able to help them defeat the First Order. Kylo has been brainwashed by a new powerful Force user. Who knows where that's gonna go? I do, but because I'm the one writing it. But Kylo's been brainwashed by a new powerful Force user, and Rey and Poe need to get Finn back from the First Order, and then Rey needs to deal with Kylo and this new powerful Force user. There's actually a lot I got to wrap up in this. I didn't even think about that, but I feel confident in myself, not to sound egotistical, that I can wrap all of this up. So thank you for watching this. Thank you for liking it more than Rise of Skywalker, because I know you do. And thank you for watching part 2. And I hope all joking aside, I hope that some of you do like this. It's actually weird to say that. I hope you guys get pissed off that this wasn't the movie. I hope you guys get pissed off that I wrote something better than the actual movie. You know, it's like, because it's like you'll watch this, you'll be like, man, that is good. Why didn't they do that? You know, but you know, that's my that shows you how big my ego is. I automatically assume everyone's gonna like it more than the actual movie. But thank you for watching this incredibly long video, and I hope to see you again for my next one. Goodbye.